All right, now that it's 9 o'clock, I'm so excited to be here. My name is Melanie Green. I'm the chair of the California Practitioner Advisories Group, CPAG. Seeing that the most CPAG member, all CPAG members are present. That's like the day at school when you have 100% attendance and you have like a popcorn party, but I didn't bring any popcorn. Will, could you please call the roll to establish a quorum?
Yes, you got it. And good morning, everyone. Melanie Green.
Here.
Roddy Boonchoy.
Good morning. Here.
Ronald Anaya.
Present.
Mia Cooper.
Here.
Babatunde Ilori. Gabriela Tavidian.
Here.
Amy Nguyen Hernandez.
Here.
Todd Collins. Kelsey Krausen.
Here.
Samara Palco. Angela Pasquale.
Here.
Matt Patterson.
Here.
Joshua Salas.
Here.
Charlotte Vega.
Here.
Corey Greenlaw.
Here.
Brad Ramos.
Here.
And Holly Laderley.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. I hereby call the December 2024 meeting of the California Practitioners Advisory Group to order at 9:01. I'd like to start by saluting the flag. If everyone would please stand. Today, we have two new members that were not able to join us in June, and I'd like to take some time to allow them to introduce themselves. Here with us, we have Brad Ramos and Corey Greenlaw. Corey, let's start with you. Please take a moment to share your name and your role and anything else you might like to share briefly with us.
Got it. Corey Greenlaw, Assistant Superintendent, Fresno County Superintendent of Schools. I oversee a variety of things, continuous improvement, data, things along those lines. Happy to be here. This is good opportunity to hear more about the good work that California is doing and provide some commentary, so appreciate it.
Thank you, Corey. Now I'll toss it over to Brad. You want to do the same thing, share your name, your role, and just a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Brad Ramos. I'm a career technical education teacher at Yucca Valley High School. Been doing that for 8 years. Prior to that, I retired as a police chief after 32 years of service and as a former K through 12 school board member. So I'm excited to be on this board and give back also.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Corey. We're excited to have you. We have a great board or a great group, and I'm excited to have you join the team. However, I am sad that this is my last CPAG meeting. I think I've been on CPAG since 2019. Saw CPAG through COVID. I had a baby while I was on CPAG, and I've also just had, but seriously, really appreciate the expertise and leadership of state board staff and CDE staff throughout the entire time. I can't think of a more respected and qualified group to lead California through the work that we've been doing. And so that is the biggest thing I'm taking away is just the opportunity to learn not only from this group, but from CDE and state board staff. So thank you. I also want to thank and recognize a few other folks who are wrapping up their time on CPAG. First, Ron Anaya, for his time on CPAG. Ron has served on the advisory board through 2020. And then also, though not here with us, I also want to recognize Todd Collins for his work on CPAG. Todd served on the advisory board since 2022. So I would love to give a round of applause to Ron and Todd. Thank you. Additionally, I want to announce the appointment of a new chair and vice chair to CPAG. The State Board of Education recently appointed Rodney Boonchoy as CPAG chair. Congratulations, Roddy. Let's give him a round of applause. Additionally, because Roddy is the current vice chair, the SBE has appointed Corey Greenlaw as his replacement as CPAG vice chair. So we'll give Corey a round of applause. New and taken on vice chair. Beginning next year, 2025, I said it, we're getting to the 2025, Roddy and Corey will serve as your chair and vice chair. The next CPAG meeting is Friday, June 13th, 2025. Make sure you mark your calendars. So now we will dive into our items. We will take up item 2 out of order to approve the minutes from June 2024. As a reminder for public input, public comment may be provided in person or on the phone or by phone. Members of the public wishing to call in for public comment should view the live stream of the meeting to know at what time public comment will occur for each item. Public comment can be provided during the meeting by dialing the phone number and access code listed on the screen during each item. The operator will notify callers when it's their turn to provide public comment. Public comment will be limited to 1 minute. Remember to please turn down the speaker volume of your computers if you are following along on the live webcast to avoid making an echoing effect. Item 3 is general public comment, during which members of the public may provide comment on matters that are not specifically listed on the CPAG agenda. Just as a reminder. Okay, so let's take up item 2, which is to approve the minutes. CPAG members, you were provided the link to the draft minutes that were posted on the CPAG website. I'll give everyone about a minute to review, just in case you weren't able to review before then or before this meeting. Okay, we will now take up public comment. Please put up the public comment slide, which we already have on the screen. Members of the public wishing to provide comment on this item may do so by calling the number on the slide. You'll be notified when it's your time to speak. We encourage you to state your name and affiliation for the record. Please remember to turn down the volume, like I said just a second ago, so that we could hear you clearly. Speakers will be limited to 1 minute each. So we'll wait a second to see if there's anyone on the line. Do we have any callers?
No, there's no callers.
Doesn't mean we're not popular. Just means people aren't excited yet. Okay, so we'll move on. Is there any discussion on this item from CPAG members? Oh, thank you. Are there any public comment folks in person?
There was no one signed up in person.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move. Is there any discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the June 2024 CPAG meeting?
The motion to approve the CPAG minutes from June 14th, 2024.
Thank you, Matt. And do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you. Gabriella? Okay, we will now have a roll call vote. Members who were absent in June, you can just abstain. Okay, Will, I'll toss it to you for the vote.
Got it. Melanie Green,
Yes. Aye.
Roddy Boonchoy,
Aye.
Ronald Anaya,
Aye.
Mia Cooper,
Aye.
Babatunde Alori, Gabriella Tavidian,
Aye.
Amy Nguyen Hernandez,
Aye.
Todd Collins, Kelly Krausen,
Aye.
Samara Palco, Angela Pasquale,
Aye.
Matt Patterson,
Aye.
Joshua Salas,
Aye.
Charlotte Vega,
Aye.
Corey Greenlaw,
Abstain.
Brad Ramos, and Holly Ladearly.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we will dive into item 1. This is the main item of our time today. So just to get in the right mindset, it's going to cover several hours, a lot of information. There will be times where we can ask clarifying questions, but just kind of get in that mindset. This is the focus for our time, and we are planned to we'll be out before lunchtime, but this is kind of the mode we'll be in. We'll take a break probably around 10, maybe a little bit after 10:30. But I'm excited to be able to spend that much time and that focus on item 1, which is information item related to the to the California State and Federal Accountability System, review of the 2024 California School Dashboard, and the 2025 Accountability Work Plan. This item will be presented by Cindy Kazanis and Kimberly Mudhank with support from their colleagues at the Analysis, Measurement, Accountability, and Reporting Division at CDE, as well as Liberty Van Natten of the Educational Data Management Division of CDE, and Greg Skull, Interim Chief Operations Officer of the California School Information Services CSIS. I also just want to thank Vice President Cynthia Glover Woods for being here with us in person from the State Board. Cynthia, is there anything you'd like to say, or just I wanted to welcome you for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just would like to say good morning to everyone and just express our appreciation on behalf of the board for you taking your time, especially during this busy holiday season, to come up and listen and advise on our accountability system. And Melanie, I have to say, I shall miss seeing you. I'm going to have to find another reason to get into the spaces where you are. And thank you so much for the time that you've dedicated over the years. So have a wonderful meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Glover Woods. Appreciate that. And I will turn it over for item 1 to Cindy Kazanis to take it away. Thank you.
Good morning, CPAG members. Cindy Kazanis with the Analysis, Measurement, and Accountability Reporting Division. It is delightful to see a full dais. This is, I don't know that we've had a CPAG meeting with this many members, so just very excited to have you all here. Welcome to a rainy Sacramento, and hopefully, I know we will be done before lunchtime. We'll get you out before this next storm comes in. And a note of thanks to the outgoing members, Member Collins, who's not here today, Member Anaya, thank you for your service. And I echo Cynthia's comments, or Member Wood's comments for Chair Green. This work only gets done when you have leaders like herself and like your incoming chair to plan these meetings and to be engaged in this work. It is highly technical. Today we're going to walk you through, as you will see on the topics, what's happened this year. What did we see on the dashboard? What were the results? We're also going to walk you through the work plan. And we moved up your meeting. You all used to meet in February. So now we have these pressures of getting out the dashboard even earlier per legislation, and that is impacting our engagement with you as well. So there's a lot of exciting things going on. While we have data out, we have a huge work plan to get it done ahead of the summer so that we can start using the data that districts are submitting to us by August to get out a dashboard now by November 15th. So that is just the frame of our work today and for the year. You are going to see new faces today. I'm delighted to see there's additional staff in our division who will be presenting, and so you'll hear from a variety of voices, all very capable and competent staff in the policy space especially. We will also discuss towards the end how the State Board will engage in this work as well. Since we've posted this agenda, we've realized we probably need to go to the board at least 4 times next year, which is quite a bit for us in accountability. We used to do every single meeting, and then we got to take a little bit of a break. But this is a big year for a lot of decisions and a lot of guidance that is needed from the State Board of Education. And then, like always, we will wrap up with public comment. All right, so the 2024 California School Dashboard was released in early. We were required to get it out by December 1st, which was the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and we all did take that time off and got it out well ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday. Just to frame things that you all were engaged with over the last year, we have a new subgroup on the dashboard, which is long-term English learners. And long-term English learners now accounts for 14 different student groups that we're measuring progress on. Long-term English learners is a subset of our English learners. So if you're seeing English learners, a subset of them, about 300,000 of them, 300,802 are long-term English learners, depending on the indicator we're looking at. The definition for long-term English learners is unique to accountability. It is a more simplistic look so that we can actually use the definition within the year that the student became a long-term English learner. And that's defined as a pupil who has not attained English language proficiency within 7 years of initial classification as an English learner. And 7 years is 2,557 days. So they would have needed to be in the system. They may not have started as a kindergarten. Maybe they entered our system as a second grader, and we would see that calculation done once they hit that magic number. They are included. The board adopted their inclusion in the accountability determinations for LCFF. So of our districts and county offices who had long-term English learners and performance on that, you will hear some of those results a little bit later on in this slide deck. We also welcomed science as an indicator on the dashboard. We know that other states have used this indicator, but we have been working towards this actually since 2018. So very excited to see this as for informational purposes. We've made that really clear on the dashboard that it is not used in calculations at this point, but it is getting out there so the public and our educators in the field are familiar with the metric. Just as a reminder, it is based on data from our two science tests, our California Science Test, CAST, and our California Alternate Assessment for Science, or CAA Science. And then as far as the methodology, when you all met between your meeting and the state board meeting, things changed a little bit. So the board adopted a methodology that was similar to the academic indicator methodology. So that's distance from standard. And the difference to be aware of, and something that we're going to spend time on in 2025, is making sure the field understands that the English language arts and mathematics distance from standard uses a different scale. So we need to be, I think, very transparent that you shouldn't be looking at these data next to each other because they're not using the same scale for measurement. In science, just to be aware that we only have certain grades that are tested. It is actually a much smaller group of students than we see for English language arts and math. So we have grades 5, 8, and then students are required to test once in high school. So it's usually 10th, 11th, or 12th grade students. And then, of course, because it's for informational purposes, and actually because the board has not yet taken action on establishing performance levels, they are not used in accountability determinations. So what I mean by performance levels is we don't have a status cut score set, we don't have a change cut score set, and we do not have 5x5 grids set. And you're going to hear a little bit about that work again in a later part of the presentation. But that's what will be required to bring science on as a full indicator for 2025. And the last piece that I'm going to present on before turning it over to my colleague is the new addition of the local control and accountability plan to the dashboard. This was also required by legislation, and instead of having a link like we know we have to do for our school accountability report cards, we actually are grabbing every single district and charter school in the state has submitted a PDF version of their LCAP. So you can actually download the full LCAP. Of course, they range in size. I've seen some that are 200. I'm sure Corey has seen some that are more like 400 pages long. So some of them are quite large, but they are now all available right off the dashboard. And with that, I'm going to turn over to my colleague to introduce herself and take the next slides.
Hi, my name is Sarah Marole, and I'm an education research and evaluation consultant with the Analysis, Measurement, and Accountability Reporting Division. And today I'm going to quickly review with you all the 2024 Dashboard State Summary. As we can see here on this slide, we have 7 indicators that we've reported on. Suspension scored a green this year, which is great to see. We have 3 indicators in yellow: chronic absenteeism, graduation rate, and the college career indicator. And then finally, we have 3 indicators that scored with an orange. That's English learner progress and our academic indicators, ELA and math. First, we'll start with a little bit more of a look at chronic absenteeism. This is an indicator that represents LEAs and schools that serve transitional kindergarten through grade 8 students whose students were absent 10% or more of the school year. For most state indicators, the desired outcome is to have a high percentage of performance in the current year. This indicator has a reverse goal and shoots for a lower percentage of students chronically absent. So if we take a look at the card, we see that 18.6% of students were chronically absent this year, which is a decline of 5.7%, which is really great to see. If we take a little bit more of a look at the data, we can see here on this slide the distribution of schools and districts across the gauge. And we have 64.6% of schools and 66.8% of districts falling within yellow. Next, we'll look at suspension. This indicator represents the percentage of students who were suspended for an aggregate total of 1 full day anytime during the school year. This is another indicator where we want to see the numbers go down and not up. We can see here that statewide we had 3.2% of students suspended at least 1 day, and this is a decline of 0.3%. If we look at this additional information, again, we can see the range of schools and districts falling on the gauge. We have 24.8% of schools and 32% of districts falling under green. For our English Learner Progress Indicator, this indicator represents the percentage of English learner students who are progressing towards English language proficiency. As Cindy stated earlier, this year we added our long-term English learner subgroup, which is a subset of the EL students. This measure uses student scores on the Summative English Language Proficiency Assessment for California, or the LPAC, and the Summative Alternative LPAC, and compares the current year scores to their prior year scores. Here we can see that statewide, 45.7% of students are making progress, with a decline of 3%. When we look at the additional information, we see that 29.3% of schools and 42.9% of districts are falling within orange on this indicator. For graduation rate, this indicator represents the percentage of students who received a high school diploma within 4 or 5 years of entering 9th grade or complete their graduation requirements at an alternative school. Here we can see that 86.7% of students graduated, and we maintained at an increase of 0.3%. When we look at the distribution, we can see that 16.2% of schools and 15.5% of districts fall within yellow. This was an exciting year for our college and career indicator, where we saw a return to color since the pandemic. And this indicator represents the percentage of high school graduates who are prepared by their school or LEA for a college or career. The hope of this indicator is that schools will be providing their students with a rigorous and broad course of study. Here we can see that statewide, 45.3% of students were considered prepared, and we maintained at an increase of 1.4%. Again, we have the distribution of schools and districts across the color gauge. 18.7% of schools and 26.2% of districts fell within yellow. For our academic indicators, English Language Arts, this applies to districts and schools that serve students in grades 3 through 8 and grade 11, and is based on student performance on the Smarter Balance Summative Assessment and the California Alternate Assessments. The academic indicator is calculated using 2 components: the distance from standard, which is the average distance in points away from level 3 or standard met, and the participation rate. Statewide, students scored 13.2 points below standard and maintained at plus 0.4% points. We can see here that 32% of schools and 41% of districts fell within orange. For mathematics, again, we are looking at students in districts that serve grades 3 through 8 and 11, and it's again based on their student scores on the summative assessments and the California alternative assessments. It's calculated the same way as the ELA indicator, and we see statewide that we are scoring 47.6 points below standard and maintained at plus 1.5 points. When we look at the distribution of schools and districts, we can see that 32.3% of schools and 39.5% of districts fall within orange. And finally, we have our science indicator results. Again, as Cindy stated, this indicator was for informational purposes and reports how well students are meeting grade level standards on the science assessment. It's again measured based on student performance on either the CAS, the California Science Test, or the California Alternate Assessment for Science, which is taken annually by students in grade 5, 8, and once during high school. We can see that statewide students are scoring 13.5 points below standard. I'm going to pass over now to my colleague Justin, and he'll talk about the local control funding formula. Were there any questions before I pass it over? All right, thank you.
I hope you didn't have any questions because you're saving them all for me. Welcome, I'm Justin Lane. I work for the Accountability Measurement Division, and I'm here to talk about LCFF and ESSA. We released, along with the dashboard on November 21st, we released our local control funding formula, differentiated assistance determinations. So as a recap, there are 3.5, because the last one's a little bit different, but we have three levels. Universal, so support for all districts, COEs, and charters in the state. That's level 1. Level 2 is what we'll be discussing today, which is the targeted support and supplemental, or what we call differentiated assistance. These are for local education agencies, districts, charters, and county offices of education that meet the certain criteria for additional support. And then we have level 3, intensive intervention, and they meet with the California Collaboration on Education Excellence, provides more intensive support for these eligible LEAs. And then we had the last one, state intervention, state level intervention, and the state superintendent of public instruction may, with the approval of the state board, intervene where CCE determines that the LEAs need more focused attention. So with differentiated assistance, our criteria for districts and county offices of education, they are eligible based on meeting the following criteria: the student group performance in 2 or more LCFF state priority areas, or performance on the local indicators in 2 or more LCFF priority areas, or a combination of student group performance in 1 state priority area and local indicator performance in another different priority area. So for charter schools, it's the exact same criteria, except for we look at 2 years of dashboard data. So in this case, for districts and COEs, we look just at the performance on the 2024 dashboard. For charters, we look, did that a student group meet the criteria on the 24 dashboard, and did the same or another student group meet the criteria on the 23 dashboard. If the districts, COEs, or charters meet the criteria, they are eligible for differentiated assistance. So look over our numbers. In 2019, we had 333 districts, COEs, eligible for differentiated assistance. In 2022, the first year that we produced the dashboard after COVID, that number jumped to 617. Last year, it was 466, and now in 2024, we have 436 districts and COEs eligible for differentiated assistance. So you see that since we had the height of COVID, after COVID, 617, and we're slowly inching our way back to pre-COVID levels. And hopefully, you'll see this trend in ESSA as well. Hopefully that trend continues moving forward throughout the years. So we have 153 districts or COEs that no longer are eligible. And so if you're familiar with LCFF and love it as much as I do, year 1 is where a district or COE meets the criteria. And then if they no longer meet the criteria in the following year, they move to year 2. If they meet the criteria, again, they go back to year 1. It's like Bill Murray in the Groundhog's Day. They just repeat year 1 until they get it right. And so 153 districts and COEs have moved from year 1 to year 2 and are no longer eligible for differentiated assistance. And then we have 123 districts and COEs that are eligible for differentiated assistance this year. So in 2024, 153, or that 15.4% of districts and COEs eligible for differentiated assistance made that, like I said, made that significant improvements and are no longer eligible. In 2024, 436 districts, again, are eligible for differentiated assistance. And the 3 student groups in greatest need of support are long-term English learners, which, as Cindy mentioned, they were added to this dashboard and added to LCFF determinations. Students with disabilities, and the homeless student group. Now, for charter schools, and though we did make determinations in 2019, it was based off of completely different criteria, and so we don't compare to 2019 numbers. The legislature and the state board worked to align the charter school eligibility criteria to reflect more of what you see for districts and COEs. So the first real year that we did differentiated assistance was last year for charter schools, and we had 203 charter schools eligible for differentiated assistance. This year, that number decreased to 173. Charter schools are no longer eligible, 94, and newly eligible charter schools are 67. Again, there's that 13.6% drop because, 173, 13.6% of all charter schools statewide are eligible to receive differentiated assistance. There was a 7.4% improvement overall for those charter schools that made significant improvements. And the three student groups in greatest need of support are students with disability, socioeconomically disadvantaged, and the English learner student groups. So, the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA School Assistance. Now, I am happy to report that as you guys were gathering and saying the Pledge of Allegiance, we actually released our ESSA determinations this morning. I know, and I will give a shout out to Will and his team, who have been fabulous and wonderful to work with to get this data out. And I know that you probably, like me again, ever in the past we released it on January 31st. And it's like Christmas. We want to open up the presents. We want to get there, but now Christmas has come early. So we have released it. The state board memo has gone out. The file has been publicly available. The technical guide for those that want to dig into the deep weeds of ESSA determinations is also available. And so I'm happy to report. So we weren't sure when we put the slide together what I would say. Maybe I would just say we hope to have it soon. But now I can give you actual numbers, but first I will say that this year marks the second year of a 3-year cycle. So in the past, if you go back prior to COVID, we made comprehensive support and improvement, CSI, and additional target support and improvement, ATSI, determinations annually because we kept on making slight changes to our accountability, and the feds want us to re-identify after. But now that we have started, last year we made CSI and ATSI eligibility criteria, and that locks in. We do not make eligibility criteria or determinations for CSI or ATSI until after the publication of the 26 dashboard. So we entered this 3-year cycle period, and now we're in year 2. So year 2, we only determine CSI and ATSI exits, and then for the first time, we make targeted support and improvement, TSI determinations. And I don't have slides on this, but the TSI the criteria is the exact same as it is for ATSI. And so I get a lot of questions like, oh, there has to be a difference between ATSI and TSI criteria, and there is not. It's the exact same. Well, I do mean the exact same. It's basically they meet their criteria. The same student group has to meet the criteria in both dashboard years, the 24 dashboard and the 23 dashboard, which was criterion 1, all red indicators, criterion 2, all red indicators but 1, and criterion 3, 5 or more where the majority indicators are red. Those are the 3 criterion. If a student group, it has to be the same student group, unlike LCFF charter schools, the same student group has to meet in both years. They will be eligible for TSI. So with that, I'll give you the numbers. I'm just reading from the State Board memo, and feel free to pull it up and read it. But there's been a dramatic decrease. It's over a 60% decrease of those schools that had an ESSA status determination from this year to last year. There's a 60% decrease. So this year we have last year we had 289 schools eligible for CSI low graduation rate. That had a decrease, or 62 schools exited CSI low graduation rate because they met the criteria. 540 schools were eligible for CSI low performing last year. 419 schools statewide exited CSI low performing. So 419 of that 540. ATSI, and ATSI, if you remember, when we presented this after the 22 dashboard, was about 6,000 for ATSI in 2022. Last year was 2,371 or 2363. That has a decrease of 1,734. So you see that there has been every category of ESSA that we had made just exit determinations had a significant decrease. So with that, there are 306 schools that met TSI. So so the way that we looked at it is that we did exits first. So we exited all the schools from CSI, exited all the schools from ATSI, and then we had the schools that weren't in either of them before, and the schools that just recently exited, and that was our pool for TSI determination. So out of that pool, we identified 306 schools that met the TSI criteria. And so for this year, for the 24 year, there was CSI low graduation rate. There's 226 schools that met that are still in CSI low graduation. CSI low performing has 117 schools. ATSI has 626, and again TSI is 306, and 8,765 schools statewide have no status at all, which is since the pool is about it's 10,040. That's about 87% of the schools statewide are not in an ESSA category at all. And I'll go through the TSI, and if you want, so that the State Board Memo Attachment 3 specifically goes through TSI and the criteria, but just to give kind of some numbers. So for TSI, the number of schools, 249 schools, had one student group eligible for TSI determinations. 43 had two student groups eligible for TSI determinations. 11 schools had three student groups, and then the last one, three schools had four student groups eligible for TSI. So that is my update. Are there any questions?
Any questions? And just ask Justin. Oh, go ahead, Kelsey. Go ahead.
I have a question about overlap between charter schools identified for DA and charters that are eligible under ESSA, since it's a school level identification for both. I just curious broadly about sort of avoiding duplication in the system, since both systems are intended to target support where it's needed in the state.
That's a great question. So if you go to the State Board Memo and page 6 of just the body of the memo, we actually have, because we asked that same question, we want to see the overlap between like charter schools and DA, and just like not only just charter schools and DA and in ESSA, but also how many districts are in differentiated assistance and also have schools in CSI, ATSI, or TSI. So we do break that down in tables 6 and 7 of the State Board Memo. But really quickly, I'll go through it. The number of charter schools eligible for ESSA assistance is 91 for CSI low graduation rate. Number of charter schools eligible for differentiated assistance and ESSA assistance is 72. And so we do break that down. CSI low performing, 8 charter schools are eligible for CSI low performing. 6 of them are also eligible for differentiated assistance. And then ATSI has less correlation. So that was like 79% and then 75%. This ATSI charter schools versus them being in differentiated assistance is only at 31%. So there's 45 in ATSI. 14 of them are in differentiated assistance. And then for TSI, it's 31 are in TSI. 12 of them are both in ESSA and in differentiated assistance at 38.7%. Well, thank you. I'm glad someone actually cares about that table. That's very exciting for me.
We all care.
Other questions? All right. Thank you so much, Justin.
Justin did not advance the slides. Oh, it's okay. Oh, you were supposed to stay up, Justin. he snuck out. That means I get to present one of his slides. Good morning, everyone. Kimberly Muntake, Administrator of the Accountability Development and Policy Analysis Unit. I'm so happy to be here this morning. If you are not aware already by now, CDE creates a gigantic dashboard toolkit. We begin with this rollout in August and aim to have everything on the page and ready by the publication of the dashboard. So we've been rolling out resources throughout the fall and the latest ones to be added to our toolkit, in addition to all of our beautiful flyers. Thank you very much to our contractor, Sacramento County Office of Education, that assists us with making those so pretty. We also have translated flyers there available. But my staff worked really hard on creating a bunch of on-demand videos this year. They're all updated for every single indicator. And essentially, if you have ever really wanted to get into the academic indicator and understand all of the nuances, for 35 minutes, you can watch our PowerPoint in detail through every single business rule and every single little tiny nuance step, with my staff essentially going through all of that on your own time. So, you're commuting, you can hit play and learn through all of that information as well. You can listen to it to go to sleep at night. I'm not sure, but it's a great opportunity. Folks constantly, I get phone calls from principals and other people saying, what's going on with this? And sincerely, you can read through the business rules, which we also have posted on our dashboard toolkit, or you could listen to the YouTube presentation. But we've really tried our best to be able to create a resource for when we can't answer the phone, when we can't answer, all of the detail in emails. So we've created a lot of resources to be able to empower folks to learn all about the dashboard when it's convenient for you to do so, because I know we're all working at different hours and different times and places. So it allows us to be able to really teach you constantly without having for folks sign up for a webinar, right, at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and you miss it and it's not available. And you got to wait a long time for it to be recorded. So we'll be updating those every year as well. And then, like I said, any additional resources like Justin's new technical guide with regards to federal support, that's available now too. So the dashboard toolkit is full and complete. And now we start working on our dashboard toolkit for 2025. And this is the page he didn't get to present, so I'm stealing it from you. Sorry, Justin. The Long-Term English Learner Web Resource. So this is actually a collective effort by everyone in our division to create a brand new web page to help folks understand a brand new question that did not exist before the publication of this dashboard. And that is, what is the difference between long-term English learners on the dashboard and the previous definition of long-term English learners that's been utilized for assessment results, as well as being given in our SOARS files from our division as well. So what are the differences between those two definitions? The old one is based on 313.1 in education code and depends on an identification of students who are approaching long-term English learners, AR LTELs, or long-term English learners who have been for 6 years with additional caveats on how they've tested in prior years. So that is a definition we've been using in other contexts. The dashboard introduced a brand new definition. And that definition is that a student has been an English learner for 7 years or more. Okay, so that is brand new. Schools don't have this information, right, at the ready. We haven't provided files for that kind of information. So this website goes into detail about understanding all of those differences and nuances, where you can find resources on the assessments as well. So are there any questions with regards to this new resource? Yeah. All right. With that, go for it, Melanie.
So as we were planning today's item, since it's such a long focus on one topic, we wanted to pause here to let CPAG members pair up and just in all the data and information that you were received with a partner to discuss, is there anything you noticed or is there anything exciting about this release of the dashboard and the data that you just ingested? That's not the right word. Give me a better word. The data we just heard. So with a partner, and we'll just do 2 to 3 minutes, not very long, but just wanted to pause. And what do you notice about the data that was just shared? And is there anything exciting or stands out to you about the data that was just shared? 2 minutes, informal, talk with your partner, and then we'll continue on with the presentation.
Good job. What do you know that? It's raining. At least I'm close.
Should be easy. It's Friday.
Yeah, I'm right here. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not even halfway yet.
All right, I'll be right back.
No, those are like, TSD and all that, and the contractors. So there's no way.
Thirty more seconds. Finish up your final thought with your partner. So do I have 2 to 3 folks that want to share noticing from your conversation with your CPAG partner? Yes, Corey.
So actually, mine might even be a question that relates back. The CSI stuff was pretty quick. I had to process it for a few minutes. That's anomalous. 60-something% is a huge drop in the number of schools. So I guess my question to the CDE as well as to the board as we go forward is, first of all, is that something that's not expected with an accountability model? So is that something that the model that was developed with the scaling and the way we're actually putting that together, is there something wrong with that? Was that expected? I mean, yes, we would love to see schools change in 1 year, but that amount is not something that we would expect. And we haven't seen it over years and years of doing accountability work. So first of all, that's a question. And then the second question, if it is, and they're all doing really great, well, then what the heck are they doing? Mm-hmm. What is the plan to go out and look to see what changed, what happened, why did this happen? As opposed to just reporting it, I'd love to stop, slow down, and do something to be able to really collect some information to say, why did this happen, and how can we replicate it if it is a truly intentional process that changed some of those things, which it may be. I'm skeptical, but that's from my experience doing it. But if it is, great. Let's learn from that.
Thank you. Any other thoughts from your conversation with your partner that you want to share? Okay. Thank you so much. I'll transition back to Cindy Kazanis to continue with our item.
I didn't want to leave that hanging. I wanted to make sure that Corey's question was addressed because it is valid, it is reliable, it is expected. We've never had an opportunity, though, to not have districts, or rather schools, not be identified again for those same categories. So that is, the TSI piece will pick up, it did pick up 300 or so, but the exits, if you make improvements, that's your exit ticket, right? So I've been talking to Colorado. They're revamping their entire accountability system. They want to model it after California. And I said to her, like, oh, we got to do, TSI identification for the first time. And she goes, what are you talking about? We've been doing this for years. So the entire nation is in like their second cohort of CSI 3-year the 3-year process. California is far behind because of the need to keep re-identifying every year. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be this reorienting ourselves to how does this work, and just making sure that the resources are out there. But these schools made progress. They did exit. Some of them may have been identified now for TSI, but we see that those are huge gains. So we should be celebrating, yeah. And this is one of the core tenets of this group. This is why you all exist, is because how do we set up an accountability system that then measures progress or lack of progress and identifies the schools in most need of support. So I'm going to turn it back over to Kim. She's going to take you through the accountability plan.
All right, who's ready for 2025? Yes. I've been joking with folks that, I think when the dashboard came out early on November 21st, I think maybe that was November 24th, that next week before Thanksgiving. I was like, congrats. I'm like, what just happened? I've been in 2025 since November 1st. Because we have this brand new work plan, a new timeline to get things going. And so in order for us to be able to present to you what we're going to do in 2025, we've been thinking about it for a while. So we didn't really have the full luxury to absorb and take in all of the results of 2024. So I appreciate, it's always nice to see all the numbers again, reflect on them again, just because I feel like it was like a really passing moment. It was a very, very quick overnight trip through 2024 at the end here. So we're going to walk you through exactly what we plan to do for 2025. So just in case you weren't aware, as Melanie kind of alluded to previously, CDE is committed to continuous improvement of our accountability system and dashboard, and you are a large part of that process. So we create an annual work plan that reviews the state and local indicators and the performance standards, and we address suggested revisions or updates. They can be small, they can be big, and we do this. Normally, we have done this in the past every March. We are now doing it every January. So I write that there. It's like, oh, we do this every January. This year will be the first year we're doing it in January. And then we're going to go to the board in July. This past year, we did March. In 2024, we did March and July. In 2023, we did March and September. So we've moved everything up to this new January-July schedule. And we hope that everyone is coming along, paying attention, and ready to go. And so for us, it's now December and June. So the reason for this workup, obviously, is SB 114, which changed the deadlines for the publication of the California School Dashboard. And so next year's statutory deadline will be November 15th, 2025. Now, it is not an as inconvenient date, but it is still a Saturday. So the idea of publishing on a Saturday and getting all of the folks ready who, as we all know, when something goes live on a website, it doesn't take, it's not one button push. It's a lot of people behind the scenes. So we anticipate, again, it would likely be before November 15th in 2025. But probably that same week. So I don't think it'll be as early as we were able to do this past year in order to avoid the Thanksgiving holiday. But yes, November 15th. And as a reminder, in 2026, we will be publishing by October 15th. So we will be releasing the dashboard on the same time schedule as the current assessment results come out. Okay, here it is. Deep breath. This is the 2025 Accountability Work Plan. This is what we have scheduled for you for this year, for our team, for the State Board of Education, and myself and my team will be walking you through the details of this entire plan. So we are looking at incorporating the science indicator fully into the dashboard. Additionally, incorporating student-level growth for grades 4 through 8 in both English language arts and mathematics into the dashboard. Next year will be the 10-year anniversary of all of that work for myself, so I'm very excited for that one. Additionally, we are going to take on a review of the currently adopted college career indicator components and look at those in more detail. We'll also be reviewing participation rate rules for the academic indicators as well as the science indicator. Our office also deals with the DAS school application and renewal criteria. So we'll be having a full conversation with the State Board of Education around that currently adopted criteria because they are the overseers of that program for application. So we'll be walking through that with them as well. We'll be looking at differentiated support eligibility based on CalPADS data submissions, and we have a lovely members of the audience and special guest stars today that will walk you through all of that. We're also going to be looking at a review of the Priority 1 teacher assignment data and improving that section of information on the dashboard. And finally, what you're all here for, the ESSA state plan and what all of the things at the top of the screen, how they may impact changes to ESSA moving forward. All right, so deep breath. We're going to start with science. All right, now, how many of you found science on the dashboard when you saw it originally? When you saw it? Okay. Did you guys like the teal color? I kind of want it to be teal forever. I know it has to get a rainbow color, but we need more teal on it. I like the purple, but we need some teal on the dashboard too. So the science work plan and goes through, we have dashboard principles that list out any of the changes that we make for the dashboard based on the adopted principles by the State Board of Education. Our science work plan involves the following 3 principles. Principle 5, valuing high performance and growth equally. Principle 8, reflecting technical quality through measures that are valid and reliable. And Principle 11 is subject to continuous revision and improvement. So just to walk you through briefly of a background on science, we first operationalized the California Science Test, or CAST, in grades 5, 8, and once in high school back in 2018. That was our first opportunity to assess students on that first operational test. And in 2020, at the March SBE meeting, oh, what a time, CDE discussed a timeline for potential incorporation of the science test results into the dashboard. Like, it could happen that year or maybe the next year. And obviously, things changed a little with testing for the next 2 years. However, as soon as we could, in basically March 2022, when students are assessing in full volume again, we provided an update on the feasibility of incorporating science into the dashboard, considering the revised blueprints that had gone through with the CAST. And at that September meeting, the State Board of Education approved the insertion of a link to the dashboard additional reports on the California Science Test results for the CASP website. So therefore, on both the 2022 dashboard, remember the all purple dashboard, purple cell phone bars, as well as the 2023 dashboard, CDE published that link to the dashboard additional report. So it was one way that you could get to the science results really quickly and easily. At the July 2024 State Board meeting, the State Board of Education approved a metric to measure science on the dashboard, inclusive of a participation rate and a high school methodology. So we spent last year working on how would we measure science? What would it look like? How do we count high school students in their participation, right? And walk through what that looked like. And that is what you see on the 2024 dashboard, are those results for both status and change. And then in November, that is what you saw. Moving forward, however, how does an indicator go from this little teal box for informational purposes only into a full-grown indicator? Well, we have 5 steps to get there. So the first is the approval of status cut points, followed by the approval of change cut points. We need to establish those cut points in order to create our 5x5 grid. And then once that grid is created, we have to apply a color scheme to it. And as you know, each of our indicators has a different color scheme. So that is a choice by the board to implement a policy scheme of how colors show up for which statuses and which changes. So once that is all settled by the board decision, then we can think through, do we want to include the science indicator? And how would we include the science indicator into the state accountability system? And finally, do we want to include, and how would we include, the science indicator in our federal school identification system for ESSA? So those are the last final decisions once we have established status change cut points as well as the 5x5 grid. So we're going to be evaluating and looking at the results for the 2021-22, 22-23, and 23-24 science assessments, and looking through and establishing, based on precedent and how we have done this before for all of our other indicators, science or cut scores for status and cut scores for change using all of those administrations and presenting those decisions to the board, as well as options for color schemes. Yep. We plan on doing that work right now. It says January, it's right now. And we will be presenting the board with that decision that they can, or rather, they can make that decision in March. So at their March meeting, we're hoping that they can take up and decide on all of those things. So people will know what the expectations are for status and change prior to the actual administration of the CAS this year. And then additionally, what color scheme they would like for the 5x5 grid. That will allow us to post on the dashboard a science indicator with a full color. So absent any other decisions, right, those 3 decisions made in March will allow us to publish a full color on the dashboard. No more teal. Additional decisions by the State Board of Education will come in July. Utilizing the information that we have around status, change, and the 5x5 color grid that they have adopted in March, we'll be able to present options to the State Board of Education for inclusion in the determination of eligibility for districts and charter schools through LCFF, as well as through ESSA for school identification. And the board will make decisions on if they would like to include it and how they would like to include it. So those decisions are all up for the board, and we plan to present that at their July State Board of Education meeting. So with that, I will pause real quick for questions around science. I like you guys today.
Sorry, Kim, I do have one question. It's Corey.
Go for it.
Sorry.
Okay.
So I get all the cut scores and I get all the rest of that, and I know there's going to be some challenges because the distance from standard and the different scale, and it makes it a little more, it doesn't fit as nicely as it did for ELA and math. But what, could you help me understand why, where would be a decision that would need to happen from the board on how to differently incorporate the science indicator into kind of the way we're choosing kind of the DA eligibility? Because I mean, it's still an academic indicator, even though, I mean, it's still like ELA and math. Is there, what would be something other than putting it in with the ELA and math the way that it already is? Is there something else that would be a potential, no, change it to here, do something just so, I don't understand how it would be different.
So I believe Corey's referring to, so for differentiated assistance, districts and charter schools are identified through their performance on across multiple priority areas. And the priority areas are already determined, right, through education code and through walking through those, the standards of what we're looking across the entire dashboard. Priority area 4 is the academic performance priority area. So the logical place for science to be would be in that category. However, again, when we were adding components and indicators into differentiated assistance, that's up to the board to say that CCI belongs in priority area 7 and not priority area 8, right? So that is up to the board to decide where they would like science to live and in which area they would like it to live. So that is a policy decision for them to make. Anybody else? All right. Next up, I hope there's a couple questions on this one. It's just personal. Melanie knows. The incorporation of a state-level growth model for grades 4 through 8 in both English language arts and mathematics into the dashboard. So as far as the principles that are aligned with this area of our work plan is Principle 2, reports opportunity and performance gaps among student groups through the equity report that's available on each state indicator. Principle 4, values each indicator equally. Principle 5, values high performance and growth equally. Principle 8 reflects technical quality through measures that are valid and reliable. And Principle 11 is subject to continuous revision and improvement. Okay, so the State Board of Education on a very, very long journey. As I made mention, I joined CDE in 2015. I began working with others on developing a growth model based on our brand new set of CASP assessments back in 2015. And it will be 2025, 10 years later, that we're going to see this on the dashboard. So it's not for, that we've stumbled or fallen. We are going to be, I will put my money down right now. We'll have the best growth model in the country. We'll have the most reliable and valid growth model in the country. And that is something that we should be incredibly proud of. And I can tell you at the most technical, geeky, super statistics conferences, everyone's talking about all of the fixes we've made and how smart it is. And essentially the folks that have created the original growth models are like, yep, this takes care of all that error that we were seeing and we couldn't take care of. We're glad you're doing the right thing. So we're so incredibly proud to be putting this forward and having really valid and reliable data for all of our schools, districts, and student groups to look at and see real information from. So with that in mind, and this says December, but we have updated this to early 2025. CDE will be presenting and releasing the initial set of English language arts and math growth data using 3 years of assessment data. So we'll be utilizing the 2021-22, 22-23, and 23-24 data to produce these results. The reason we need 3 years of data for 2 years of growth is what I just spoke about, is 1 year of growth for really small N sizes, and especially in the state of California, it's less than 500. But for our tinies, right, are just at 30 students and 30 to 100, there's a lot of noise and growth. And so we, as a state, really value our student group level data, right? And we want to look at, even when it's small, we want to look at that information and get something from it. And so that is why we add in the second year of growth and need an extra year of assessment data, is because that helps balance out for our small numbers. Now, our big schools, big districts, you're only going to see in the calculation, we only need 1 year of growth or 2 years of data. But for those little populations, we add in a prior year of growth to make sure that it's not noise you're seeing, that it's actual growth that you're seeing, or lack of growth, right? And that's a really reliable number that's available. So that's why we needed that extra year. And the release of these results are going to allow the State Board of Education to begin talking and to begin having conversations about actual data, actual results, what it looks like, what the numbers look like, right? And what the scale is, in order to be able to translate that into the policy that they want to pursue in our accountability system moving forward. So the release on the dashboard is going to be inclusive of a graphic display, and it will be shown on the details page. So similarly, when you go to that second page of the dashboard and you see the science results under that for additional information, right? At the bottom, or informational purposes only, I apologize, at the very bottom of the screen, that is where the growth information will show up. It will not be nested among academic information so that to confuse anyone or think anybody like, oh, this is something we need to act on. It's going to be very clear that that is additional information for 2025. And we're really proud of it, but we're going to be providing constructed responses essentially around all the information that you give. So all of the data for growth will be given in a sentence structure. So you don't have to create the sentence or explain it to anyone. You can just read it to someone else, and we'll provide all of the understanding that is there. And that is the key thing that we've been working with our educational testing services partners at ETS to be able to provide that context and walking through. And so you will see those those displays. You'll see the explanations of the scores, and it'll be customized for each school district and all of the student groups at each of those schools and districts. So right now, we are planning to present back to you in June on what will happen at the July State Board meeting. And the State Board will decide if and how growth will be included in accountability determinations. We plan on having a conversation with the board likely in March following the release of that data. So being able to just present to the board and either at the March or May meetings and have a conversation about it so that they are prepared to make decisions in July. And then at the July meeting, the State Board will also approve the performance standards for student growth. So that is a necessary component for them to decide what is good growth and what is not so good growth, and provide those parameters around that. And then in late 2025 or early 2026, we will be releasing the next set of growth data based on the 2022, 23, 23, 24, and 24, 25 school years. So with that, any questions about growth?
Kim, before I ask for questions, will there be a video similar to the videos in the dashboard toolkit on growth?
So yeah, we already have videos from 2021 when we released the new growth model information. So there's some lovely produced videos that are there. We have a full FAQ that's been posted along with additional resources. But we will be refreshing and updating our flyers and toolkit. And we're really excited to have a full conversation, just like we're having with science right now, to see where folks' understanding is and develop resources that actually help you, right, based on the questions that you're asking. So a lot of times we have to anticipate those questions. And right now, where things like science, people are like, well, it doesn't count, but what about this? And so we're actually developing resources based on all of the lovely questions you guys ask. So for growth, we plan on doing the same for that.
Questions from CPAG members? Corey?
With this, there'll be in that video, there'll be a nice, clear description of the difference between change and growth, because we're using academics in both of those, and it's kind of getting hit by the same bat twice. I mean, just so that they understand what those differences and how we would apply them and why they're different in the application and use. Right?
The lovely video that's posted right now talks about that. Talks about what growth is and versus change. Yeah.
Amy? What's it? Joshua?
I don't know if this is a question or more of like a consideration. So given like the growth rate, right? I think the way to phrase it is thinking about like how would this growth rate be considered different from like middle school versus like high school accountability in terms of like the accountability determinations? Because right in middle school, like from 5th through 8th, they're taking the tests every grade, and compared to like high school, only one grade is taking the ELA and math. And so I think my question is how would that accountability of growth rate would be considered in distribution from middle school to high schools around academics?
So the key component for the growth model is that we are only measuring students in grades 4 through 8. High schools will not receive a growth score. And if you are a unified district, your growth score will only reflect the performance of students in grades 4 through 8. Right? So this is, I feel like it's we challenged folks a little with science, right? With grades 5, 8, and once in high school as not a universal indicator moving forward, right? And now growth is going to be another one of those caveated, right? Only 4 through 8, which is, again, a really important part of the accountability policy determinations that the board makes. Because right now, we have grades 3 through 8 and 11 for our academic indicator, and we're going to drop 2 of those grades, right? 3 and 11 are going to go away for this growth indicator. So what does that look like, right? And our middle schools are going to get everything, right? They get chronic, right? They get suspension, they get academic. Like, they're the ones who are going to have multiple colors, whereas people are going to start going, "Ooh, okay, like why are there so many indicators that we're not receiving?" So that's a really important component and a part of the conversations that the board will be engaging in.
Other questions? Rob?
not as much a question as a comment. I just wanted to thank you for the decade of work that you put into this with the growth level model as well, with data coming into to sites and LEAs, with making determinations on how to best adjust in real time. There's the difficulty with the lag in getting dashboard information or CAST scores the year after those students have taken those assessments. This kind of bumps back some of that information so that it's actionable in real time and allows us to make adjustments where it's formative to us, where we're not just relying on those local assessments and site level assessments, where this can be used in part of that decision-making process. So it is powerful. It's very important at the site level to be able to have this information as soon as possible. And the growth level, the growth model allows us to use last year's assessment information in a way that helps the students that we still have.
Thank you.
I am no longer a person who is crunching the numbers for you. I used to be, but I do want to say, like, just to my counterpart, Ryan Lamb, and his entire team that does do all of that crunching as fast as they can, especially to be able to get things out, and the rest of our support who does all of the other things in our division, who Sudha Sharma, who also helps with her entire team to be able to get stuff out. I promise you we're doing as fast as we can to get through, and I think October 15th is going to be, right, like, what if, I just think of your calendars, right, and how you all have your meetings set up, and what a difference it is that we're going to be talking about support determinations 2 months into the school year, right, in October versus January, right, after Christmas break. And okay, like, you know, it's going to be revolutionary, and I'm so excited to also be a part of that journey moving forward with all of you.
Any other questions? We're gonna, if it's okay, Kim, we'll take a break, 10-minute break, and then we'll go into the next section. The one thing I wanted to say about growth, I think it's great to be able to release it in early 2025 for the public to digest it and ask questions and, you know, process with their communities, and then have those policy discussions. I think it's hard when it's like, it's now in your accountability system. You're really giving us a chance to digest it and learn it. So I really appreciate that. And the work I've seen, just having status and change and the 5x5s, which is different than what we're talking about, but I've seen it change how communities think about goal setting and how they think about growth for student groups, how they think about growth in their graduation rate, and they think about how to make measurable progress. I can't wait to see what this does for the field, because, you know, after years of having that type of model of thinking about growth now, or change, to now have this to help expand even more of how we think about growth and what's possible and how to set goals for kids. I just think it's going to continue to change how we think about improvement in education. And it will be a while, right? The 5x5 took a while for people to really get it in their brain of thinking about, oh, I can celebrate growth. It's not about getting right here on the first shot. I'm not a failure if I'm not right here. So I just appreciate that, and I'm excited to see how education continues to change in California when we talk about getting better for our kids, as we have another way of thinking about improvement. So with that, we're going to take a 10-minute break. It's 10:27. Or no, it's not 10:27. It's 10:17. So let's come back at 10:18. Let's come back at 10:28. So right a little bit before 10:30, and we'll continue with the next part of our item. And we're back. Thank you so much, CPAG members, for coming on back after the break. I'm going to toss it over to Will to do a roll call, and then we'll go back to our item. Go ahead, Will.
All right. Wanted to capture the time that we came back. Thank you. So I'll call you all again. Melanie Green.
Present.
Roddy Boonchoy.
Here.
Ronald Anaya.
Present.
Mia Cooper.
Here.
Babatunde Ilori. Gabriella Tavidian.
Here.
Amy Nguyen Hernandez.
Here.
Kelsey Crossan.
Here.
Samara Palco. Angela Pasquale.
Here.
Matt Patterson.
Here.
Joshua Salas.
Here.
Charlotte Vega.
Here.
Corey Greenlaw.
Here.
Brad Ramos. Here. Holly Laderley.
Here.
Great, thank you. Chronic absenteeism is not a problem.
Oh, yes. We are modeling the way. With that, I will pass over to CDE staff to continue with our presentation.
go.
Is your mic on?
I have to hit the button. Hello? Louder?
Yeah, you may have to be real close.
Yes, I'm a quiet speaker.
That's better. Good. Yeah. So just introduce yourself again. Thank you, Catherine.
So my name is Catherine Morrissey, and I'm an education research and evaluations consultant with the AMART Group, and I get to walk you through what we are looking to do with the college/career indicator components. So, as a reminder, work on the CCI aligns with the following dashboard principles. Principle 2 reports opportunity and performance gaps among student groups through equity report that is available for each state indicator. Principle 3 reports each indicator separately. Principle 4 values each indicator equally. Principle 8 reflects technical and quality through measures that are valid and reliable. And Principle 4 is subject to continuous improvement. So for those of you who don't know, what is the College Career Indicator? So the College Career Indicator measures how well districts and schools are preparing graduates for college and or careers. So a little bit of background on the CCI. The CCI was developed to emphasize that high school diploma represents the completion of a broad and rigorous course of study that prepares students for success after high school. It was originally adopted by the State Board of Education in July 2016, and performance level or colors were reported for the first time on the 2018 dashboard. It is based on students in each four-year graduation cohort and uses specific criteria that are reliant on assessment and course completion data to determine if students are prepared, approaching prepared, or not prepared for college and or career. So for the 2025 dashboard work plan, we will review currently adopted CCI components, specifically the college credit courses, assessments, and state and federal jobs programs, specifically the Regional Occupational Centers and Programs, or RSCP programs. Additionally, we will update the SBE on the data collection for the Seal of Civic Engagement. So for a bit more information, for the college credit courses, currently, for the requirements for college credit courses is the correct college credit course code, either academic college credit or CTE courses, and the student must receive a C- or better. What we will be evaluating is additional components for course data, including UC-CSU transferability, minimum number of units, and A through G subject area. So for assessments in the CCI, we will review the inclusion of assessments included. So for right now, CASP assessments are included as a component of the CCI, but these are also part of the academic indicators as well. Additionally, we will look at advanced placement and AP, or International Baccalaureate IB scores. And for state and federal jobs programs, the ROCP program, it was originally adopted in 2020 as part of a career measure for the Dashboard Alternative Status Schools, or DAS schools. We will review removal of this measure from the CCI as it is duplicative of other state and federal jobs programs. CalPAD's collection on this data was incomplete in 2021, and CalPADS no longer collects any data about this program. And then finally, update on the data collection for this Seal of Civic Engagement. CDE created an ad hoc data collection to the 2023-24 end-of-year process for LEAs to submit student-level data information for those who have earned this Seal of Civic Engagement. And CDE will analyze the data and learn more about the students who are earning the seal for future consideration by the State Board for inclusion to the CCI. So I talked pretty fast, but if you have questions, that is our CCI overview.
Go ahead, Catherine. Thank you.
All right, well, and now I'm going to pass it back over to Kim.
Thank you, Catherine. All right. So this is where we go into the littler things, but they're not so little. They still take just as much time for all of us to work on and get into the work plan. But as I said, it's not as big as adding a brand new indicator like science or onboarding growth, but this is part of our continuous improvement process. So one of the next things on the list is reviewing the participation rate for academic indicators and for science. So presently, the dashboard does incorporate a participation rate penalty into the status for all schools, districts, and student groups if they fall below 95%. For math and English language arts indicators, academic indicators, that is required through ESSA. However, the State Board of Education adopted that same participation rate penalty for science to be equal with the other two indicators. And so in 2018, following the 2017 dashboard, CDE developed some business rules to include grace periods at the start and end of the assessment windows for participation. However, in response to inquiries from the field, we will be evaluating the reliability and validity of those grace periods moving forward using recent assessment and dashboard information, and we will provide an update to the State Board of Education on any actions we do plan to take with the business rules for the academic indicator moving forward. Any questions on that? Okay, these are really quick to go through. So then additionally, I spoke about the DAS application and renewal criteria. So just as a quick background, in case you are not as familiar with DAS as our lovely chair, Melanie Green, the California Education Code Section 52052G requires the Superintendent of Public Instruction, with the approval of the State Board of Education, to develop an alternate accountability system for students or for schools that serve a large percentage of high-risk students. And this education code identifies specific types of schools as alternative schools through their actual school type, so juvenile court, county community day schools, etc. And those are automatically included as eligible to participate in alternative school accountability. However, there are other alternative schools that we would all say and call alternative schools that aren't included in education code. So in 2003, the State Board adopted the first definition of alternative schools eligible for inclusion of this alternative school system. And the definition, even way back when, came through that alternative schools of choice and charter schools would be 70% of the school's total enrollment is composed of the following high-risk groups. And those are inclusive of expelled students, suspended students, boards of the court, pregnant and or parenting high-risk students, recovered dropouts, habitually truant or habitually insubordinate and disorderly, and students that were retained more than once in kindergarten through grade 8. In 2017, the State Board of Education adopted additional criteria for the identification of alternative schools as we rolled out the 2017 dashboard. And so those additional categories became defining exactly what a recovered dropout was based on education code. So those are students that are designated as dropouts pursuant to the exit and withdrawal codes and CalPADs, and or they left the school and were not enrolled in a school for a period of 180 days. Additional criteria included students who are credit deficient, which is one semester or more behind in the credits required to graduate on time, students with a gap in enrollment, students with high level of transiency, foster youth students, homeless youth students, as well as emotionally disturbed students. The State Board of Education also adopted a criteria for applying for this status, and that application required that schools have and serve a large percentage, for example, 70% or more of high-risk students, and created a process to verify this over time. And they required that DAS schools be required to recertify every 3 years for that status. So they would reapply, certifying that that data was true for every 3 years, but have information on the eligibility of their DAS status at all times. So what we will be going through with the State Board of Education is reviewing the currently adopted criteria, the process for application, and the process that CDE goes through for vetting and validating and verifying these applications for this DAS status through the State Board of Education required criteria and the DAS program itself. Any questions on that? Okay. All right, and with that, I will be passing it over to our lovely guest stars of the morning.
Cindy Kazanis again. I am here to welcome two guest presenters, Liberty Van Matten from our Educational Data Management Division, and Greg Skoll, who is from our partner organization who supports our student-level data system. And Greg can tell you a little bit more about his background and his role at CSIS. But I also wanted to give you a heads up that some of the slides that you see today transposed some of the graphics that they were intending to use. So they don't often get a chance. I think this is actually their first time ever presenting in front of a board recognized committee, and just wanted to let you know, in case you're hearing a lot of narrative that you may not be seeing on the screen, that was on us. But we are delighted to have them here today. I know Corey's had a lot of a large role in this work too, and so I'm sure he'll be able to provide some perspective in this next discussion. So without further ado, Liberty, I will turn it over to you, right? Together. Thank you. Thanks.
Good morning still. Liberty Van Atten. I'm the Director of the Education Data Management Division. Like right into it? Okay. Hi, I'll try that again. I'm Liberty Van Atten. I'm the Director of the Education Data Management Division here at CDE. One of the fun and biggest products within our division is CalPADS, the California Longitudinal Pupil Achievement Data System. I'm joined by Greg, as Cindy mentioned. Greg and his team are the other half of CalPADS. So together, we kind of make up this, and we are actually only part of this larger village around CalPADS and the data that we get into CDE, which is ultimately the foundation for our accountability system, the data side of it. So today we're going to talk about the village effort that we've been putting forth to move to this space where we're going to be talking specifically about differentiated assistance eligibility, which is this new eligibility criteria based on CalPADS data submissions. Okay, already said that. We're going to give you a little bit of a background into the why and the history of it. The requirements are also going to be covered. Then we're going to talk a little bit about what this implementation is going to look like, and then move into some universal supports that we have developed and will continue to develop to make this a success. So I think this slide, and maybe the exact text was on one of Cindy's slides earlier, or maybe Kim talked about it, but as we all here know, by 2026, the California School Dashboard shall be released by October 15th, and that's concurrent with our release of our CASP assessments. So what this means is that we're moving towards shorter timelines, and this really increases our need for timely, accurate, and usable data. So shorter timelines just elevates this work and makes it a little bit more critical. So as we all know, if the data, which are the foundation for our dashboard, are not valid and reliable, our accountability system won't be either. So with that, with these shortened timelines, the State Board of Education and the legislature, they really recognized the impact that those shorter timelines could have on data quality. So following that legislation requirement to release the dashboard earlier, Senate Bill 114 was passed, which created new DA eligibility criteria for school districts and county offices of education. So the DA eligibility requirements are twofold. The first is that eligibility is for districts that fail to submit data according to the processes and timelines in Education Code 60900F, which are established by the department. The second criteria is that county superintendents provide differentiated assistance to be focused on the school district's data management practices. The Williams list is actually another reason why CalPADS DA is important. So with the exception of alternative schools, all schools within a local educational agency that fail to meet these requirements around submitting data to CalPADS shall be included on the Williams list. So CalPADS, this is super exciting to us because for the first time, CalPADS is being incorporated into this accountability system and being recognized, and the quality and the integrity of the data that come into the system are being recognized as critical to our larger statewide accountability system. So there are some exceptions to CalPADS DA. Charter schools are not included in the CalPADS DA eligibility assistance criteria. But this does not mean that charter authorizers can't support our county offices. We really are in the space of encouraging that, and we hope to see kind of the opposite, that this work does move into the charter schools as well. So it is technically an exception, but the work that we are doing, building supports, universal supports, and communicating about all of this is that this applies to everybody. Data management practices, good data management practices, the need for timely, accurate, quality data applies to everyone. So knowing that why behind this new eligibility and those exceptions, the CDE and CSIS, along with a number of other external partners, thank you, Corey, have been engaging in for some time to determine the best way to implement this CalPADS DA. So what we've been looking at is really a number of things, but first and foremost is what are the criteria for eligibility going to be? When would we notify DA-eligible LEAs? What is going to be needed for county offices to monitor this assistance? And then I'll let Greg speak to this last bullet, but this is really, it's an opportunity for us to really highlight some of the supports, actually all of the supports that our partners at CSIS have been providing for years to our districts. So this, developing this awareness is another really important consideration.
Yeah, and we do have some slides later in the presentation that I'll go through specifically the pieces that we're working on this year to be ready for DA eligible LEAs who are eligible for DA in the future years. So,
ready? Yeah. So, all of these considerations, it looks like a short list here, but all of these considerations, many conversations, internally, externally, this whole village approach has really led us to what we've developed, which is a 3-year phased-in approach to this CalPADS DA. So this was a visual, and it did have some arrows to Cindy was talking about, but the content is here. And so that text at the top is really what is kind of sums it all up, is that this 3-year approach is really moving from a focus on certification to a focus on certifying timely and accurate data. And so we're shifting that focus to get to this gold standard of our data that we want to see. So for 23-24, which is past, we focused, like I said earlier, only on certified data. Deadlines weren't hard and fast in this space because we're phasing this in, we're rolling it out. We are happy to announce that all LEAs met that deadline. So no one was eligible for differentiated assistance under CalPADS reporting for the 23-24 school year. For 24-25, we've added in deadlines because deadlines are really critical. Back to that point about the dashboard being released earlier, those deadlines matter across the board. So deadlines are being folded into this year. And then for 24-25, we're actually going to add in more information that will be focused on data accuracy. So this is that movement towards gold standard. So to support this work, we actually now publish recommended milestones for having 0 fatal errors in CalPADS. The date has passed for that.
Yes.
I don't have it memorized, I should. But those milestones, we're calling them out. We're putting them on our webpage, and we're saying, we recommend that you have 0 errors in your data before the deadline, which will give you, your leadership, your administrators, your data providers, everyone will have time to review those data to ensure the data quality. So those milestones are just one of a few things that we are implementing to really focus on that data quality and accuracy piece. We are also developing a universal supports toolkit for districts, county offices, and charter schools to utilize. So the universal support toolkit, we really tried to take a lot of things into consideration for this toolkit. And as I mentioned earlier, we have some things released, and we will continue to build this out as time evolves and we learn more from our districts, and we are moving toward that gold standard. So the toolkit is It's more CSIS because they've been doing this work of getting our districts across that finish line for years. And so they have a number of resources, but this is kind of a high-level summary of what the toolkit is meant to address. So it's really about what are the reasons, if a district is eligible for CalPADS DA, what are the reasons that put them there? And then specifically to address and look at existing data management practices within the district. So this can be a self-evaluation, it can be a proctored evaluation, also a root cause analysis, and then a data management needs assessment. And then additionally, maybe looking at some ways to incorporate this into LCAPs potentially so that districts can hold themselves accountable for those goals for increasing their data management practices, or improving their data management practices. So we have worked together to develop a toolkit. Like I said, it's really founded on many years of support that CSIS has been giving our districts and schools to get us to that place of certifying valid and reliable data on time. So for phase 3, this is where we're rocking and rolling, and we're not only getting in, we're getting data in on time, and we are ensuring that those data are of the utmost quality to ensure that our dashboard is valid and reliable. So for data quality considerations, we have not developed those yet. We are actually in the process of doing that work and defining those criteria. And we're doing this very carefully because it needs to be implementable across the state. It needs to be communicated well, and our districts need to understand it as well. So there's a lot going into this work. So we are broadly speaking looking to identify what those eligibility criteria for data quality would be, what the timeline of that eligibility would be. So how far back are we going to look? If a district says, oh my gosh, 5 years ago we reported really funky data, do we put them on DA for the next year from 5 years ago? Those are the types of questions regarding the timeline that we're looking at. Another thing is the threshold for eligibility. So a district that has 70,000 kids, they had one student record with 1 day absence incorrectly reported. Like, what's the threshold here that is implementable statewide and fair, right? So we're working with several county office partners through TSC and CISC to develop these criteria. We are doing this with AMARD. We're doing this with SASD. This is not my division alone, for sure. And this is internal and external. This is that village work that we are going to get to where it's clear these data quality considerations and what they are when it comes to CalPADS DA. So I'm going to go into what a potential sample timeline for DA eligibility would look like. So here's an example where for a district, Fall 1 closes in January. This is upcoming. Let's say the district submits Fall 1 data in February. So they've missed that certification deadline by as much as a month. Immediately or really close after that submission deadline, after they submit the data, we would notify them of their DA eligibility. So this would be sometime in February, potentially. And that is really intentional. This is going to be an unofficial notification so that the issues and the circumstances that led to a district that they didn't meet that deadline, those issues can be addressed as soon as possible. Because if any of you are involved in data management practices, this world, this climate, this shifts pretty rapidly. We're talking about staffing resources. We're talking about technology. There's a number of different things at play within our data management world, and so addressing them quickly is paramount to this work. So this unofficial eligibility notification would happen really quickly, and then following that is when the work can start. So we don't want to wait. So following that is when the district or the county would create and implement their plan for addressing data management, data governance, the root cause, and this would be using this differentiated assistance universal supports toolkit. This is all to happen long before the December official eligibility list is published. So the district would know way ahead of time. We decided unanimously, I think, that we needed to let folks know sooner than later.
It's really important to get the announcement that they'll qualify for eligibility, because if we waited until the eligibility list is published in the following December, they will have already gone through another fall submission in this example. So if giving the opportunity to act before we do another fall submission, even though the official eligibility window hasn't started, we think that this early notification should help them address those concerns ahead of official notification, so that we don't have 2 years with late data.
Because again, and I can't say it enough, it's about the quality of the data. It's not about being on a list, right? It's about ensuring that the practices that get folks to submit their data on time accurately, that's the work that we want to focus on. So next steps and current steps, we are and continue to collaborate with our partners. I believe we've added CalPADS DA as an eligibility type in the existing DA file, and no one was eligible this year, so you won't see that on the file, or any LEAs that became eligible under this eligibility type. We are developing the CDE and the CSIS web pages. CSIS beat us to the punch. They're faster than us. They got their web page out before CDE. But we are linking to each other, right? So this is this place where we can go and have a lot of connected resources. And then DA eligibility parameters, like I mentioned before, is what we're working on also as well right now.
All right. So this is my slide, right?
Yes.
I think this is me. All right. Just to introduce myself, my name is Greg Skull. I'm the Interim Chief Operations Officer for CSIS. An opportunity to work with LEA data for about 19 years now, and CSIS's role in supporting CalPADS for the last 15 years has really informed a lot of these milestones and a lot of the thresholds and discussions that we're having about what are the indicators of when an LEA is going to submit data that's quality or on time. So in establishing the milestones we talked about earlier about having 0 fatal errors by a particular date, those milestones within a submission window, we can show that LEAs that fail to certify likely also missed those key dates. And so those type of milestones allow us to track and kind of support LEAs as they move through a submission process. So that's a little bit about our work. Part of CSIS's mission is to help LEAs build their capacity for use of data locally, and to improve outcomes for students as a result of doing that work. It's not just about submitting data to CalPADS. So the opportunity for us to do this work and support the differentiated assistance and help build data management and data culture in the LEAs throughout the state it feels like a very big moment for the work that we've been doing. We've been developing these tools and trainings with the opportunity to participate in or partner in a statewide leadership series training with the California County Superintendents, the Department of Education, Fresno County Office of Education, and CSIS working together to bring the leadership of the data submission efforts, so not just the CalPADS coordinators who CSIS has spent a long time, decade plus, decade and a half, I guess, training people on how to submit data to CalPADS. But this leadership series also is bringing in who are the administrators who are responsible and accountable for that data, and helping them understand what's the right way to go about doing the reviews and building the data culture locally to support the process. So that's one of our focuses this year that's in that space. I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to jump into a data management assessment. This is one of our first tools that's available in the Universal Supports Toolkit, and we were really excited to announce this last month. The CSIS data management assessment is geared, and it was designed based on FCMAT's Fiscal Health Risk Analysis tool. And so it uses a similar model to to allow LEAs to baseline their data management practices, and then look at the specific areas that they have. So just like with students, we want to baseline, and then we want to set targets for growth. This is kind of the idea behind this, and we see the CDMA as a starting point in differentiated assistance for those who find themselves in differentiated assistance because of data. There are other reasons that LEAs fail to certify. A lot of times that has to do with staffing. We do have some trainings that we've done specifically on how to better hire for that role and how to have the right structure around that. But for when we're speaking about data, this tool in the CDMA is one of the first that we've released. And so let me see. Give you an idea of the categories that the CDMA assesses on. It's a pretty short assessment. It should be easy for school leadership or district leadership, counties to utilize. But it assesses and scores them based on these key categories of data governance, culture, their use of data, and their ability to use data locally is part of that. So obviously data privacy and security, and then professional development around that. So the goal around utilizing the CDMA is that it's a downloadable file. It's not something that's a big tool that CSIS collects data on LEAs. They'll be able to do it in Excel, hold onto a copy of it, save it as a baseline, and then reassess in the future to see whether or not they've improved their scores in particular areas. It does create an overall data maturity score, but it also provides the ability for LEAs to look at these key categories and say, you know, we got an okay score, but this particular category is low. And so ideas for improvement in those specific areas in order to boost the overall data governance and data management practices. The next tool that we're releasing early next year is the CSIS Data Management Maturity Model. This is a maturity model that's based, that the CDMA is based on evaluating against. So once you've completed an assessment in data management with the CDMA, we look to the maturity model to show how do you take a low score in a particular area and move it up and improve. So the CDM3 is going to help answer the question of, I got this bad score on my data management assessment, how can I change, or how can we change? And then in using both of these together, we do think that there will be this progress tracking, continuous improvement, and then accountability as part of the pieces that we were suggesting in terms of for LEAs that find themselves in differentiated assistance, needing to be able to be accountable to making the changes to implement the action steps that are found through the root cause analysis and the remediation plans, so that the work that we put in through differentiated assistance will benefit us going forward. So part of that discussion, and these are some of the slides that no longer have pictures on them, so I'm going to do my best to talk through them, but part of the data culture discussion that we've been having is trying to make sure that LEAs understand that we're not just trying to get feedback. We're not trying to just get the data to CalPads. We're also trying to help them grow their local practices. So there's kind of three key areas that we're talking about is the people, processes, and data systems, and building a data culture. So having a data culture locally, when we look across the people, processes, and those pieces, we recognize that there's a universe of data at an LEA that needs governance over the whole umbrella, and it involves everybody across the board, not just a CalPads technician, to get quality data. So some examples of the people involved in the process that need to be part of this data culture and in order to be successful for CalPAD state reporting. I'm not going to go through them all, but they're there. Some processes that they're interacting with in terms of where this data is used and how, and then the systems that this data lives in. And those three pieces really come together to form that data governance umbrella. And we do believe that by creating this universal supports toolkit and by encouraging its use for all LEAs, all charter schools, not just those who are in differentiated assistance, but strongly encouraging that they're able to take advantage of these tools to do an assessment and see where their data management practices are, and then set growth as part of their ongoing continuous improvement. I think that's it for us. Yeah, I don't have any questions.
Questions?
I do. I just have to say, I have seen the slides that you're missing those things, and they were fantastic, and y'all missed it. Just saying. Very nice little circles, and it was very nice. I have a couple of questions, just one piece of feedback as you're thinking about the process, but then also just a couple. So when you're thinking phase 2 of that implementation process, you're thinking more along the lines of, I don't certify, you're going to be looking at the root cause for why they didn't certify. It's not really about data quality yet. That's not till phase 3, correct?
We're always looking at data quality, but yes, it's phasing it in so that we're focusing getting across the finish line. Yes.
Okay, got it. And I think I've said this, but I'm saying it a little more formal, so just to make sure. Just one comment: as you're thinking of this and bringing in those partners around the data quality and the data quality process and the rest, I really encourage considering and including small school districts, because they do not have. The FICMAT tool is fantastic as a measure of fiscal health, but most districts have a business department that has that process. I don't know very many districts who have an assistant superintendent of data. So there's just not that person who has that. So thinking of those smaller districts that are going to be completely overwhelmed with a tool that may not be as useful. So that just as you're thinking about bringing those in, that would be a really useful kind of group to bring in as well.
Absolutely. We know of small districts where the data submitter, for example, might be driving the bus later on in the day, right? Like that's a reality that the tool, like data management practices in general are universal. We want like security, we want privacy, we want to make sure everybody has some shared ownership in it, documentation, so on and so forth. But what it looks like on the ground varies across the state significantly. And so that is actually a critical piece when we're talking about data quality. And then, obviously we don't want anybody to be on CalPADS DA. But if someone is, that's our goal that's why we say the toolkit is being built and will continue to be built, because as we understand this culture and we're finally being able to be woven into this data being part of the accountability system, that's where the exciting work will continue to grow.
Awesome.
I have heard you say it, and I have.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
It is so critical.
And my final public thing is I applaud you both for the work, because this is necessary. We've been talking about this for many, many, many years. And so taking the time to sweat the details, to say what does good data look like, why are we doing it, and then how do we provide the support back. And I know it's complex, and I know I'm asking questions, and everybody is, but thank you for doing that, because you're taking a lot of pressure from a lot of folks who are doing this, and it's important. And the state has told us it is through the legislation, and you guys have to figure out the details. And so thank you for that. I appreciate it.
So Corey, one thing I want to just address on that is that in the initial root cause for year 1 and year 2, we do know that if we were in year 3, handfuls of LEAs have reported that they reported incorrect data, and that Liberty ends up with an email, or we end up with an email on the service desk side for CalPADS that says, hey, we sent bad data. So we know that in year 3, without change, there will be qualifying LEAs. And while I agree that we don't want anybody to qualify, there are some that would be really great to work with under this umbrella.
Yes.
And have an opportunity to really dig in and change practices and assist so that the growth and the understanding of from our side and from their side in terms of how to better support the data reporting process, but with the ultimate goal of making the burden of submitting data easier and having cleaner, easier to use data locally for decision making, because as important as it is that it gets to the state, that data is pretty old by the time it gets here. It needs to be available for grant writing and for everything that happens in that universe in a much more timely fashion. And all this work feeds back into having more quality data locally. So we appreciate that opportunity.
Any other questions? Kelsey?
So I would just agree with how important this is. And I also wonder about whether or not some of these same districts would be eligible for DA based on student performance, and the degree to which you're having discussions with county offices and CISC and others about how to retain that really important focus on student performance through DA at the same time that you're thinking about the data quality issues. Because I guess the concern is that becoming CalPAD's DA eligible would mean that there's a really strong focus on the data quality at the expense of that critical focus on improving student achievement, for students that are most in need of those additional supports.
Absolutely. I mean, we can't say one is more important than the other. They need to be woven together. I agree.
Any other questions? I think my question was going to be if it was available to folks not eligible, because I could see someone new coming into a leadership role and wanting to assess like the quality of what was going on. And so being able to have that type of tool in your county counterpart, like knowing how to walk you through it, is like just a great proactive way to support our level 1 resources that are available for districts and schools. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great to have guest presenters. You may not know this, but we work every day together with both those individuals. We could not do our work without that collaboration. So it is so delightful to have this be part of the legislative process as well, that they brought this in and thought that this was important. We continue to get emails from districts saying that we gave you bad data. So this is still real. While everybody met that first round of submitting data, the data quality is actually, for a handful, sometimes it's the private preview. Sometimes it's the day we release the data. Sometimes it's 6 months later where we'll get the email from the district saying we really want to change our data. Well, it's too late, but we will put a note on their reports and we will let the field know that the data that they see on our data quest, especially, that is the district has told us that it's incorrect, or the charter school has told us it's incorrect. So the heightened awareness that you've just heard about will help, I think, this whole piece of integrity. I'm going to cover the last couple of items and then close you out. And as we promised, you will be out of here before lunch. I'm not hearing the wind or the rain, so hopefully the weather will agree with us as well. So this section is around review of Priority 1 teacher assignment data. And just to orient you, this work aligns with a lot of our principles around making sure that data is valid and reliable, making sure that we are checking in with our community members and our educational partners, and that we are looking at that continuous revision and improvement in Principle 11. Specifically, for those of you that don't follow this as closely as others may, the State Board of Education adopted in 2023 displaying information from the Teacher Assignment Monitoring Outcome Report within Local Measure Priority 1. This is based on a data exchange between the Department of Education and the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. In fact, the data from 2023-2024 that we sent over back in April or May has gone through their assignment monitoring process for the last several months, is on its way back to the department, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And this is something that we typically get out in late spring or early summer. The board, in taking that action in 2023, they also adopted the self-reflection tool for Priority 1. This is the role of the local agency support office under Josh Strong. And that information that they put forward is consistent with what this adoption was for the TAMA reports in this measure. For our work plan, one of the things that we had committed to in 2024 and we're continuing today is to provide technical and policy support around these data. These data are now 3 years we have out, so we'll be picking up the 4th year of data. We still continue to get a lot of questions. You actually, in a district, usually have a different person involved in putting these data, and so it's moving into the human resources space to make sure that we're capturing the right information. Excuse me. And so one of the things just to be aware of is that we are going to be getting out some new data around educators. And while this may not directly impact this priority area, we want to make sure that we keep this item open in our work plan. Specifically, we'll be putting out 5 years of data on certificated staff counts by race ethnicity, certificated staff experience and summary, certificated education summary, and then student certificated staff ratios. That's a brand new report. So there's a lot of information that will be coming out in the beginning of 2025 around educators. And then our Every Student Succeeds Act state plan. We had indicated in 2024 that the state plan would potentially be reopened in 2025. This is, again, one of the roles of this committee. The CPAG is advising the state board on things that go into the Every Student Succeeds Act state plan. Specifically in 2025, a couple of things that we've had on our radar is how would we include the science indicator as part of the determinations for school eligibility? So the data file that we just released today on CSI, ATSI, and TSI, would we include science as an indicator beginning with the 2026 dashboard? And the 2026 dashboard is important because that's the beginning of our 3-year cycle, as Justin just described earlier today. The other piece that is not yet in our state plan is bringing on long-term English learners as a student group. And then finally, how would growth data be incorporated into the state plan? We are looking to the state board and to you on these items. There is a change in administration, of course. At the federal level, there has been a lot of excitement around education and where education may be going. And so I think that will, I know that will play into the conversation with the State Board of Education. It already has. And this governor has made it very clear that he wants to protect what we have in California. And so I think it'll be interesting next 6 months around whether or not the state board opens up the state plan, and if they do, what amendments would be submitted to the U.S. Department of Education for consideration. In terms of next steps for the State Board of Education, we will take what we just presented today to them with your feedback in the agenda item. I believe the meeting is the 15th of January. So if you want to tune in, you're welcome to. But again, your feedback today has been very valuable, and always just having the chance to check in with you is an important part of this process. So with that, I'm happy to open it up for questions, Melanie, or if you want to take like clarifying questions in public, how do you want to proceed?
If there's any burning clarifying questions, we'll take them now. Otherwise, I'll go to public comment, and then I can open it for CPAG discussion after that. Any burning? Okay. Thank you, Cindy. We will move to public comment. So you see the instructions that are on the screen with the call-in number. Members of the public wishing to provide comment on this item may do so by calling the number on the screen. You will be notified when it is your time to speak. We encourage you to please state your name and affiliation for the record. Please remember to turn down the speaker volume of your computers if you're following the live feed. Speakers will be limited to 1 minute each. So, are there any callers yet?
No, there's not.
We'll give it about 1 more minute. We can check. Is there any public comment in the room?
There is no public comment in the room.
People are smart and inside. All right,
Good morning or good afternoon. Caller with phone number ending in 8945. Please state your name and affiliation for the record. Your time starts now.
This is Suzanne Cooey of the Charter Schools Development Center. The two P's in CASP stand for performance and progress. With the California Growth Model, we finally have a progress metric, at least for grades 4 through 8, that speaks to how good student growth is. The state is in a position now to substantially upgrade the dashboard by incorporating growth data. CSDC urges a robust process to strengthen the dashboard, including to improve the fit of dashboard data with accountability determinations, with the charter school renewal categories, and with the grounds for non-renewal of charter school petitions. A robust process to strengthen the dashboard would include engagement with practitioners and with school improvement experts, including the CCEE, to inform thinking and make the thinking visible at multiple points between now and June. We strongly encourage a process that can really help us look at how we're using the dashboard. We appreciate the comments of the CPAG members and for the meeting.
All right. Good afternoon, caller with phone number ending in 0493. Please state your name and affiliation for the record. Your time starts now.
Madam Chairperson and CPAG members, I'm Shelley Spiegel-Coleman from Californians Together. This year's LP indicates that 54.3% of English learners did not grow by the expected 1 level, and that actually the percentage declined 33% over last year. There really should be a sense of urgency to address English language development. However, this decline and the low level of attainment is orange on the dashboard, which does not trigger intentional accountability. The cut scores set a low level of expectation for English language proficiency growth. The state and a district are orange when only 35% of the ELs meet the growth target. When 65% of English learners do not show the expected growth in their English language proficiency, no accountability is triggered. We urge the CPAG to recommend that all cut score levels be raised, as indicated in the chart in our letter that we forward to you. Thank you for your work, and thank you for hopefully your guidance.
Good afternoon, caller with phone number ending in 8256. Please state your name and affiliation for the record. Your time starts now.
Hello, my name's Rob Manwaring, calling from Children Now. I wanted to associate our comments with a detailed letter sent in by the LCFF Equity Coalition. As we look to this next year, a student growth model is the gold standard of accountability, and it's time for us to start identifying schools for assistance and districts for assistance based on a combination of academic performance and growth. And this is true even if it causes delays in the identification process. As you're seeing, growth data comes out later than these dashboard deadlines that we're talking about, especially as we move towards October. Second, we believe that science should also be considered in determinations of the system of support. And then third, on the science studying standard process, which is going to happen in March, our science performance is very low.
All right. Oh. I accidentally hung up on someone. I don't know if we wait.
We can give them a minute to call back.
Okay. Oh, there she is. Sorry about that. Good afternoon, caller with phone number ending in 1385. Please state your name and affiliation for the record. Your time starts now.
Hi, this is Sarah Lillis, Executive Director for Teach Plus California. I also want to share my appreciation for the hard work of the department and board staff, particularly in the 10 years of work to get to having a growth model on the dashboard, and we are eager to see that move forward and associate our comments with the Equity Coalition as well as our colleague from Children Now. We just wanted to raise one additional question around, we were disappointed to see that the question around having a school climate survey measures on the dashboard. I know there was work that was done in 2024 and some listening sessions, and we were wondering where that work is now and would hope that we would be able to continue to move forward with that. So thank you.
This concludes public comment.
I'll check one more time to make sure there aren't any public comments in the room. Seeing none, we will close public comment, or this is the conclusion of public comment. Is there any additional CPAG discussion on this item today? Go ahead, Rodney.
I want to thank the team for this presentation and all the work, particularly the focus and dedication to continuous improvement. There are tighter deadlines and a higher volume of work that needs to get done. I do have one kind of musing on that list of the accountability or the accountability work plan. And I don't know if this is under the purview of CDE or the board, but to telescope out a little bit annually and to ask ourselves about the coherence and alignment of our accountability system with the values and the investments that are happening on the ground. And what I mean by that from a practitioner's point of view is, educators are putting an enormous amount of energy into social-emotional health, mental health, behavioral health, focusing on the whole child. A lot of work happening around our graduate profiles around the state. I know the State Board of Education discussed that at the last meeting. And then we have our investments, particularly the learning recovery initiatives like community schools and UTK and ELOP. So there's a lot of activity happening. And so I wonder, how can we ensure that the outcomes and all the energy that we're putting in on the ground are reflected in our accountability system? Because sometimes it can be disheartening to look at our data and know that everyone's working really hard to support students, but are those outcomes all reflected in our accountability system? As education evolves, how does accountability reflect or evolve to reflect the work that we're doing on the ground?
Thank you. Yeah.
I want to thank the team for coming out and speaking and giving us this presentation. Really do appreciate it. My comment is more on the science piece and adding the science piece to the dashboard. I'm kind of really a firm no on that because it's just, we have a lot of things that's going on that we need to finish first before we start adding that piece. And look like if we add it, it's going to be more of maybe the schools will go back into a different differentiation. Okay,
differentiated assistance. Mm-hmm.
And so just that could be like an ending cycle of schools getting out, coming in, going out, getting in. So I just think that we just need to really focus on the things that we do have, focus on improving on that before we start adding on any other things. And plus, science is only being graded on two grades. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Oh, go ahead, Joshua or Josh.
For me, just thinking about just particularly for the ELPI, and it's more just a comment and reflecting and thinking about the data of like, even though like, and great work that we're having long-term English learners, and it makes me wonder like what more work we can do now that even with the additional demographic for English learners, wondering what more we can do, like as LEAs or like as a support to thinking about progress for our English learners, knowing that they are becoming a growing population and we're still seeing like slight growth in terms of like ELA and math for it, as well as like language acquisition. So I think it's just more of a comment of like what more work we can do as not only as advisory, but work addressing like our English learners to see more progress in reclassification.
Thank you. Other CPAG comments? Okay. With that, I want to echo a huge thank you for everything that you put together today, the continuous improvement approach, and being able to see the growth in our accountability system. So thank you. And I want to do one more thank you to Ron for the service you've had on CPAG, and of course Todd, but thank you, Ron. This concludes the December 2024 meeting of the California Practitioners Advisory Group. Thank you all for a great meeting. I will not see you in June, but you will be here in June. Oh, there's more public comment? Oh, the item for public comment. Oh, man. You would think I could get that right on my last meeting. This concludes item 1. So thank you. Now we go into item 3, which is general. Look, I don't even have to look at my notes for this one. Item 3, which is general public comment on any items that were not on the CPAG agenda. So the call-in instructions are on the board or on the screen. Item 3 with the call-in number. Members of the public wishing to provide comment on this item may do so by calling the number on the slide. You'll be notified when it's your time to speak. We encourage you to please state your name and affiliation for the record. Please remember to turn down the volume of your computers if you are following the live feed, and speakers will be limited to 1 minute each. So we'll give them a second to call in. And this is general public comment. I was so close. I remembered the flag. I remembered roll call. It got me. Item 3.
This concludes public comment.
Great. And there's no one in the room that would like to do public comment on item 3?
There's no one in the room.
No? Okay.
I think, Melanie, the only public comment would be thank you for your service as well. You've thanked everybody else, so thank you for your support on behalf of the department and the CPAG members and the State Board of Education.
I appreciate that, Will. It's been a pleasure. So this now concludes the December 2024 meeting of the California Practitioners Advisory Group. Thank you all for a great meeting today, and the next meeting is in June 2025. I adjourn today's meeting at 11:33.